So tonight is connecting with our ancestral spirits. I have a lot of information to cover just because this is something that I don't see people talk about really ever. And there's some words that are really, really good to know when you're wanting to invite spirits into your home, whether known or unknown. That's Tank.
Tank. Quiet. You'll have to go in the bedroom.
He barks when people walk by his window.
Sorry, guys.
That's his window.
We'll go close the curtain.
All right, well, I don't see anybody in the waiting room, so I am going to go ahead and start. And I think one of the best ways to start a meetup about connecting with ancestral spirits is like, why are we doing that at this time? There's 2 other times of the year that you might want to do it, which is midsummer, but this is really known as the time where the veil is thin and you connect with ancestors. So the why is, we do this to gain insight into ourselves and into whatever past that came before us. It's for spiritual development, and those are the kind of things you want to keep in mind when you want to contact your spirit, either your spirit guides or your ancestral spirits. They're different, and I'll explain that later, but we want to honor all the people that came before us and paved the way so that we can be here now learning these lessons. And obviously with past lives, we were probably there doing some of that too, but not everybody reincarnates together. So we've got people on the other side, helping us reach our highest goals and spiritual path. And all they're looking to do is like be heard. So this time of the year is the easiest time of the year to hear them. In the lore of Samhain, this is the time when the god has died and gone underground and the goddess follows him. So if you're familiar with the story of Persephone, she gets taken into the underworld by Hades, fed the seed of the pomegranate, and is then deemed queen of the underworld, but she's also goddess of spring. So she holds both roles. This is the time of the year where the crone is very present. This is all of us in our knowing. We've lasted an entire year. We've gained all this knowledge. And now as the earth is barren, we figure out how we survive through the dark months. So that's sort of why this is the time. You bring in ancestral spirits to help you get through the dark times. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 suggestive workings and then talk about ancestral altars. But first, I want to give you guys the tools that you use during this time frame. So I've set this up a little different to give you like the reference page. So this is all the stuff you want to write down if you want to have things on your altar, work with spells, do offerings, burn anything. We're going to go through some of that. So for colors, this is a huge color holiday. White and black are always purification and protection. So anytime you're using white or black, I always have like little black candles that I light during this time as a symbol of protection or purification. They work hand in hand. Purple is the spirituality color. So if you want to do any kind of purple coloring, your clothes, buying a cloak, having a carpet that you sit on, candles, of course, anything purple. It's also dealing with psychic powers. So if you want to get into that meditation where you're looking to connect mentally with spirit, purple is good for that. Orange, of course, because all the gourds are out at this time, but orange is happiness and opportunities. So this is when communities come together and they take stock of what they have so that they can last together. So that's where the opportunity of orange comes in. And then it's a happiness color. And then yellow, of course, that is the color of communication. So that is the color of air. And when you're doing spirit communication, yellow is always good to have around because that's that mental air. You want to go on that? Sorry. The mental air color for communicating, whether it's with people that are alive or people that have passed or ancestors, of course. All right, so moving on to like foods and herbs, the things that you can have either on your altar, around your home, by your door, of course, the pomegranate. And crazy enough, I went to the store tonight and they didn't have any pomegranates. Like I have to go to the farmer's market here to get a pomegranate. So if for a substitute, you can use like a pomegranate juice. I just wasn't going to buy that because I don't think I would drink it. But a pomegranate juice is also a substitute. Like in the old times when people would actually do animal sacrifices and use blood for stuff and for recipes, Pomegranate juice can be used as an alternative if you wanted to get into something that signified like a sacrifice or a blood rite or something. It's a good juice for that. You can also squish a pomegranate and make really, really potent staining juice. I did not know this. I've used blueberry branches before, but I didn't know blueberry as a fruit is a protective fruit. So having that around during this time protects you from spirits that you don't want in your home. So the blueberry, new knowledge for me. Cacti, if you don't know that cacti are a protective plant, place them anywhere where you feel like you have a lack of protection. If you have like a loose window or a door, or there's just an area of your house that seems really scary, put a cactus in it to ward things off. And then for like herbs, basil is the catch-all. Basil is like for everything, but it's a huge protection plant. You can keep it fresh or dried on your altar. You can crush it up, you can burn it, however you see fit. And it's highly available at most grocery stores or all grocery stores. I don't know. Everywhere I go, they have basil in packages for cooking and stuff. Using the dry stuff, I don't buy it already dried, only because I don't know who dried it and what they did and where it came from in the world. But when it's fresh, it's usually local. It can't ship that far before it goes brown. So dandelions. So tonight, we don't have dandelions in Florida. It makes me so sad. I took that for granted when I lived in the Midwest. There are dandelions everywhere, and they're a superfood, right? They have like all these potent powers and everything. So the only thing I can get in Florida is dandelion tea. So you don't have to drink it, but setting a cup of dandelion tea by your bed or on your altar, the dandelion in it is something that actually is calling to spirits. So this is one of the few herbs that's meant for calling spirits in. Thank you, Mom. Mm-hmm. All right, now it's time for the Christmas tree smells. If you don't know the difference between a juniper, a pine, and a cedar, if you crush up the leaves of something and it smells like a Christmas tree, you're on the right track for using that herb. There's so many varieties. They've done so much like reconstructing the plants and making them look different, but any of those are protective plants. You can dry them, you can keep them fresh, hang them around. They also ward off evil spirits. Anything negative, they absorb it, they push it away. Okay, the two that I would do dried and burnt, wormwood is a definite calling of the spirits. So the two, if that is like your sole purpose, you're going to want to have dandelion something, and you're going to want to have wormwood, because those are the ones that really get you in touch with spirit. And lastly, rosemary. Rosemary and wormwood usually go together because you've got one that calls spirit and the other one that protects you against negativity. So I always burn those together. I have some tips if you want to collect for yourself. I always do, just because we have a ton of trees around with lots of stuff. I just have like pieces from my cedar that fall off. And when the little branches fall off, I just collect them. I put them in a little bag. And because they're in a little bag like this, once you get them in there, the trick, so that you don't need like a mortar and pestle, is to crush it. And you don't poke your hands. You dump it into a little tray. And this is how you can burn these on your altar, next to your front door, whenever you're doing your stuff. It could be, if you're doing a dream one, you could put it next to your bed. And then if you want to collect fresh pine needles for yourself, these little ends, just rip those guys off, crush these up, add them to the mixture, and then burn it. I will warn you that this smokes heavily, so don't do a lot of it. You don't need a lot to make it meaningful. If you're outside, go to town on it all, but a little bit inside the house is plenty. So the other thing that I bought, I don't know, it's been like 6 months ago, but I have a sage bundle that's actually half cedar and half sage. So if you find something like that, that's another perfect thing that you could burn during this time to burn the evergreen. Moving on to stones, there's just 3 that I recommend for this time. That's going to be black obsidian. So with black obsidian, it actually connects you to past life stuff. So it's calling in spiritual guides and ancestors, but it's also connecting you with your past life stuff. So that almost creates a stronger connection. And then black tourmaline is a protective stone. I would wear this on you. If you're pretty new to doing stuff or you don't feel confident, just get a chunk of it. It's not that expensive. I think this was like $3 or $4. And it can be broken if you want to use it in multiple places. It breaks really easily, so be careful. But black tourmaline is an awesome protection stone. You can set it around your house. You can carry it on your body, near your person. And then lastly is going to be bloodstone. Oops. So bloodstone is highly available also. I bought like a set of 12 off Amazon of little bloodstone hearts that I gave out for gifts one year at Christmas. And because it's bloodstone, it connects directly with your ancestral line. And that's another one that's like a calling the spirit stone. If you want to get in contact with bloodlines for yourself, bloodstone is where it's at. Okay, so that's like the heavy referencing stuff. If you guys have all of that, you can use it interchangeably. You can use it however you want. You can't go wrong with how you mix and match it, burning it, whatever you want to do with it. All right, the very first thing that I have to talk about if you're going to connect with spirit is protection for yourself, protection for your home or your room, but it can really just be for yourself. The first option is to just use a stone or an herb around you. If you're not familiar with like meditating and putting the white light around you, a white light of protection, which is where I work, but to get your stone or herb that's for protection, you have that around you. You can slap the floor around you. You can slap each corner of the wall. All you have to do is make a shape. It does not have to be a circle. Make a shape of something that you are going to be inside of while you try to communicate with the ancestors. Okay, so spirits that can get through or would get through or strong or want to take over your time, this is what stops them. As long as you have that with you, you've dabbed around the room, however you want, in whatever shape. The same thing is like with stones. If you have multiple stones, you can place them in a grid type fashion where if you're in a square room, put one in each corner of the room. And all you're going to say, like the intent when you put it down is, I place this stone here for protection of myself while I do spirit communication. Like, it's simple and plain language. If you get too fancy with it, the message might not be conveyed. So just speak as plainly as you possibly can as you're laying your stuff down. You don't have to rhyme and you don't have to like say all the old words. You don't have to do any of that. Okay, so the second option, which is more what I do. Oh, and for the stone thing, say you don't have any stones and you're just starting out, table salt. Salt is always a protection and a purifier. You can put, hopefully on a plate probably is best, but like on little containers, put salt in each corner of the room. If that's all you have, you can work with that, and salt is a totally fine protector. Okay, so the second option is more where you're going to sage yourself or your space. You're going to let go of any negativity that you might have been carrying throughout the day. Just cleanse that whole area around you. And then, where was I going with that? That's, for me, it's like I light a candle with that. You guys don't have to, but I have my own little ritual to start my stuff. But I light a candle. I invite my team of light in. I imagine my white light of protection, a big silver bubble around me, whatever it is. And then I just say, like, I'm protected. That's it. Nobody can get in here that I don't want here. So those are the two ways to protect yourself before you start anything. And if ever you start feeling bad about the situation, just stop. There's nothing wrong with stopping if you're not comfortable. Try to come back to it later or clean it up and then start like the next day. Even though we really want to do spells or rituals, sometimes it's just not the right time, and be okay with letting that go. Okay, so the very first thing that I always do during this time is I make a really, really blatant path for spirit to enter my house. Normally it's there all year round and I have my protection around my house, but it's always there for communication. And that is, if you've seen outside lighting, like up a pathway, whether it's solar lights or like, what are they called? Landscaping lights or whatever, but a path, a lighted path leading to your front door, that's the beginning of this. It stems from an old Welsh ritual where the one town would light a bonfire and then each young man of the family would come and like light a torch from that. And then they would put it at the edge of their driveway to their yard. And that let everybody know that they had been to the town fire and been blessed by that fire. So in modern times, now we light a path all the way down our sidewalk, our street, whatever it is, whatever you have. For us, Kat's going to show you, we lit a path from inside on her front door, just barely in. So you can make this as grand as you want. You can go as small as you want. You don't have to do it at all. It's just another way to have that invitation. So if you can see Kat's camera, I'll be quiet. Mute myself. Camera. There you go.
All right, I'm unmuted.
Yeah. So there's Cat's view.
So can everyone see the lighted candles, the front door?
All right, go ahead and mute yourself.
Hold on, hold on.
I had trouble finding the mute button. All right, so hopefully you guys could tell that that's just candles inside of these little brown bags. This is getting back to about as close as you can get to the original way of doing it before people had actual outside lights. But they would put candles inside bags or with a bag over it or some way to start a fire leading up to their path. And they left it there until the dawn. So it went from dusk till dawn. And the lighted path was just another way that when the night gets dark and your ancestors, you have to imagine it's like a movie. They're out there wandering around like, oh my God, I don't know where I'm at. Where am I going? And then all of a sudden they get to that familiar spot and they see like lights leading to the house. Fire is a way to attract that. Fire always attracts spirits. So that's lighting the pathway in. It's when you light your candles going in, remember to use your intentions to set as far as like what you want the fire to do. I'm looking to bring in ancestral spirits. I'm looking to bring in, spirit guides that I haven't connected with, whatever it is. Just set your intention while you light that candle. That's as far as you have to go with it. Now, what you do next, after you have a lighted path into your room, your space, your altar, wherever you have that lighted path, there's a couple different things that you can do now that you've set up that space. You're protected, you've invited. We can do the plan a meal with them. There's two ways. An honorary meal is where you set a plate for them that doesn't get touched, that you don't have to eat with them. You just leave that in a room and it's, it could be their favorite food. It could be your favorite foods. If you have somebody specific you want to connect with, try to do things that were meaningful to them in their life. If it's for people you don't know, like ancestors we don't know of, I have all of them. I don't know I don't know anybody past my grandparents. It would be just things that are really personal to me or things that I think would have been in relation to what they lived through or maybe an area of the country. I did the 23andMe thing, so I kind of know where my ancestors come from. Although there's 1% undefined and I could always have like alien blood in me. I'm just saying there's always a chance that that's there.
She does. I was there.
So, and if you have multiple people that you want to set a dinner plate for, you can, or you can do like a one and it's all. So the second option, so that's like a plate set aside. You don't have to interact with it. You can leave it there all night. It's kind of like cookies for Santa. Or you can actually have the silent supper where you, your friends, whoever get together and sit at the table with the food and everything prepared. And then as you're eating, it's like each of you should be thinking of a memory of a person or trying to remember something from a past life or like letting your mind wander down that ancestral road of what that looked like, what was life before. And the cool thing about it is as you get things that pop into your head, that should be your ancestors trying to communicate with you things. So you're going to want to write this down later. Always keep a journal of this stuff because it'll make sense when you learn something else, that it already came up once. And it's like, I have no idea what that meant, but you will. Just keep it. So I always say, write down what you've interpreted from the dinner sitting there. And if you add things like candles or there's decorations, always watch for phenomenon. I mean, there's always little things that go on when you're paying attention and your senses are all heightened within your room. Things can go missing. You can have stuff misplaced. You can have like lights turn on and off. You can have candles go out for no reason. Always pay attention to that. Yes. Okay. So the thing that I've done in the past is I added a white tablecloth to the table for this because you will notice that there will be food that has fallen off the plate and there's no reason that it should have. Like your cats went in the room, your dog didn't come in the room, nothing. So putting a white tablecloth down lets you see stuff like spills or stains or something from stuff being moved. So I love that. And then I always have candles lit because you can see how the candles are all reacting. Or say you have 5 candles lit and only one is doing like a crazy dance. You're like, oh man, okay, something is definitely going on there. And again, just record it. And if you do divination later, you can ask, was this the spirit? Did this person come to the dinner, whatever. Okay. Yeah, I put in here a bunch of examples because somebody was like, there was this moth who showed up at our dinner and the moth just wouldn't go away. And I'm like, yeah, that could, I mean, bugs could definitely be a thing. A moth, I don't know. It could, listen, if they interpret it as a sign, it's a sign for them. So just look for whatever stands out to you during those times. And journal. All right, the next is you've set your path, you've done your protection spell around you. Now it's time to sit with yourself and your ancestors and do some kind of divination. Whether you want to do tarot, runes, tea leaves, whatever other kind of divination there are out there, to ask questions, to gain insight. This is where you're really going to engage. You are going to be actively trying to communicate with them and receive messages back. So this gets a little heavier because it takes more time. You have to relax a bunch. You want to make sure that, you know, your own thoughts are not like popping in your head all the time. But this is where I want to tell you guys about the words that we use and the difference between all of them. So I would love it if you took notes on that, just so that as you say stuff, you know why you're saying it. That's always super important to me. We request the presence of our guides because our guides are assigned to us. So they don't really get to determine their schedule. We make their schedule. So you request them there, be like, hey, need you here. I request your presence. This is it. With ancient ancestors, because you got to think about that we're not just one lifetime, we're many lifetimes. We don't know when's the last time they were on earth, what they're doing, where they're at. So we actually say, I stir the ancient ancestors. You want to like gently awaken them. When you say stir, think about it like that. The energy that's out there that lingers for these archetypes in our past, you want to stir that, you know. So if you want to like connect with Leonardo da Vinci or whoever, you know, Merlin the Great, you can do that. You just say, you stir them. It's not like I request you be here. Like, no. So it's a stirring. It's a respectful way to ask them to show up. So when you say it, I gave examples of like what comes after that. I stir the ancient ancestors to give me knowledge, provide truth from the past, connect with the old wisdom. So you're asking something of the spirits to be there to guide you in something. And we don't call on ancestral spirits often just because it's deeper into the energy than like our spirit guides. Our spirit guides are daily, they're always with us. But ancestral spirits that don't have that connection, the direct connection, you want to just stir them once or twice a year, or if some big shit's going on, be like, I'm going in for surgery and I really need to make sure that I'm healthy and all this goes well. You can bring up the big guns. That's what that's considered. Okay, so that is the words, either the summon, request, or stir. I didn't say summon, did I? Summoning is when you are asking elements to come into your space because you summon them. They're only elementals. They don't have like a grand gesture that they need. They can be called upon by bringing their element into your space. So fire, air, water, earth, spirit. You can have like a symbol of them, but it's summoning them. Okay. What did I do? Oh, 7. Okay. I have my cards number. I got to make sure I go in order. When you are calling in the ancestors to talk to them and you're requesting that people join you in your circle for greater knowledge, sitting and meditating, which is just like trying to keep your mind as blank as possible and letting stuff come in that's involuntary. That's meditation in a gist. But let the images come into your mind. And as long as it doesn't start to get personal for you, like you forgot to do the dishes or put away laundry, or you've got like stuff to give away to Goodwill, as long as there's no personal stuff that you're thinking about, let that go down a rabbit hole and see what happens. You know, you end up in a scene somewhere, or you see a name, or you see a person dressed in a color, and then write those things down. When I meditate, I always use music with no words. It helps me stay out of my own head. Silence doesn't really work for me. And then I just put don't overthink it. You can think about the place where your ancestors might have come from. That would be a good thing to think about. Like, what did that land look like? What were the jobs that they did? Because that's not your life stuff. But that's it. And then you start asking the ancestors questions. You know, that's like the broadest thing I could ever say. But whatever it is you want to know, you know, it could be from adoption stuff. It could be from, you know, why do I have not all of my blood in the DNA analysis? Like, Who am I really? Where did I come from? Whatever it is that you want to know about your lineage, or just like people that you come from, or an old archetype, like I said, Merlin or whoever, old people, kings and queens and all that. This is the time where you can call them in. And as I always record your answers, I'm never going to stop saying journal, because I realize that as we do stuff, it's a lot easier to talk about it than it is to write it down in a journal later. All right, I already went through this. Requesting the guides, stir the ancestors, yes. Oh, okay. Here's two things you guys might not have heard before either. If you've heard of invocations, right? So invoking something with an I, invoking it. There's a difference between evoking as well. So those are two ways to call things into you when, not into you, to you while you're doing spells or incantations. The invoke part is calling something that is outside of you to come and join you. So if you believe that whatever power, spirit, archetype, guide is not within your body already, you don't have the knowledge, you're invoking them. You're calling them into your space. To evoke them, it's something that you've already learned. You have a power like, the goddess. You can evoke that, which means call up that power to be present in that space. So using those words, it just lets the energy in the room or around the universe know what it is you actually are looking for. Are you looking for something outside of yourself to meet you? Or are you looking to call up a power from within yourself? So invoke and evoke. Okay. Next is just altars. And altars are so fun because you can do whatever the hell you want. I mean, this is anything and everything that you want to put on them. The list that I gave you guys at the beginning is all appropriate for this, but whatever else makes you think of your ancestors or a home country or a place. It could even be planets. It could be whatever you wanted. And it's just that you create a space in your home. You can put it towards the west, which is supposed to be, I think I have that. Yeah, the west is the land of the dead, I think. I'm pretty sure. I don't do that. I put it wherever the hell I want. But you make a space in your house, and then you add things to it that reminds you of what an ancestral story would look like, I have a really strong connection to animals. So I think that I come from a long line of like healers or people that dealt with animals. There are things that were intrinsic to me when I was very little that nobody taught me to do or like. That's where I see things from my past life that shine through. Like, okay, I did have a past life regression and I learned I was a maid, which makes a lot of sense because I'm like a super big neat freak and I want stuff in their place. And my sister's messiness drives me crazy. And that was probably our biggest fights growing up, is that she threw her shit everywhere and I was always cleaning. So we learned in this past life regression that I was the neighbor that was a maid, and she was like the daughter of this rich people who kept trying to marry her off to these men that she treated really badly. And we both envied each other's life because she envied my life since I was free. I could sort of come and go as I wanted. I wasn't forced into doing stuff. I mean, besides, cleaning houses, I guess. But she was forced to marry whoever her parents said. Like, love wasn't an option in her last life. And it's what she really searches for now. So it was pretty mind-blowing. So I would have to connect with the maid thing a little bit. I'd have to acknowledge that. I'd probably put up like, those old little hats that the old maids would wear. They're so cute. Yeah. Or like the nurse maid hats. Yeah. That would be on mine because I know that I definitely feel what the lady said about that. So anything and everything, past life stuff, things you felt when you were little, ideas you might have about who you are. And remember, we can skip family. So your ancestral line does not have to be blood. You are not always born of one race or gender or country. We come in different areas so that we can learn different lessons. And that's not always accessible in America or living in India. Like, think about how different our experiences would be in learning stuff. So, yes. Also, if you have no idea, the easiest thing to do is have something with the word ancestor on it and then light a candle for it and be like, boom, there's my representation of ancestor. Simple, done, trying to connect. Like, they'll get the message. As long as you put the energy out there, it's good. You laughing at me about that one?
I'm actually laughing because wait till you see the volume of ancestors I brought to this meeting tonight.
Oh, Lord. She's been hiding stuff. All right, I just have one last thing as far as suggestions and stuff, and that's like, you don't have to sit and do divination. You don't have to You don't have to do the meal stuff. You can definitely take on other, like just doing a ritual bath for yourself and thinking about this. You can take all of these things and then turn them into whatever you want. I would be precise about your language and your intent for connection. And then other than that, like, that's why we're witches, because we like to do what we want. Nobody can tell us what to do. So take everything that you learned here tonight and then make your own ritual for yourself that feels good, personal, that you can connect with. And if the first time it doesn't go well, try again. It'll work. Like, it gets better. Every time you practice it, it'll get better. So
journal about it.
Journal.
That's the important thing,
Yes.
is to start writing things down as you have these experiences. And I think when we're beginning, I know not as I'm beginning or was beginning, I didn't place the value in that journaling and writing things down that I do today. I realize how important that is. She's shown me pictures of her journals from like, here's what I wrote a year ago on this day, and here's all the goals that I had and what I've managed to achieve and what I still, so to be able to go back and look at that is just, it's inspiring. It's motivating. And, just to have that history of it is pretty darn cool when you think about it, because how many people actually keep up on that stuff? I can't tell you how many journals I've started and didn't finish. So before we go any further, I have to show you guys all the ancestors I brought to this meeting tonight.
Is this the book from your mom?
Hold on 1 second. Yeah. So my mother researched, this is a 3-ring binder. Okay. This is my mother's side of the family going back like 400 years. Okay. We're related to royalty. I mean, I'm not saying anything like I'm a queen or anything like that.
And aliens.
And then on my father's side of the family, my aunt wrote a whole book about the town that my grandparents were from. So I was making charts because everybody's listed in there. So like my greats are listed. And I was going to say something about like when you see, I had my great grandmother, I think her name was Noran, Noram, Paul. And I remember when I saw her name, I was just like, for whatever reason, I was intrigued by that. And I feel like I want to call her because I feel like there was some kind of a connection. I felt this thing when I saw her name. I was like, Nora Paul, I really like that name. If I'd known that name was in my family line, I probably would have named one of my kids Nora or one of my girls. But anyway, so that's the ancestors I brought today.
I don't think most of us are that lucky to have people who did research for us. I mean,
no, we have 23 and me now. So, and probably if any of you are on 23, we have like 1,500 closely related relatives. And when you look at the chart, it's like you share a third great grandparent. I'm like, oh, is that Noran? Maybe?
Yeah, it gets out there as far as figuring out how you're connected, and then it's really not that close. But I did it with my sister trying to find my dad's family, which nothing happened with it yet. We're still waiting. It'll, one day maybe somebody will find us out there. But yeah, so that's our story. That's everything I have for you tonight with connecting with spirit. I can open the floor up. Any questions that you guys have, more that you want to know about, suggestions, it can be on this topic or another topic, but I loved doing this session tonight. I loved it. So thank you all for being here with me.
So Jessica wants to know, what about the essential oils?
I do not have any of those. I apologize. I don't deal in essential oils. I use fresh herbs and plants. Sorry.
That's because her whole yard is a garden. So, if you saw it, you would be like, wow. All right. Anybody have questions?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. It is 6:37, so I kind of did good tonight with the stuff. If anybody's wondering about where to get wormwood and things like that, I want everyone to know that I definitely order from Amazon or Etsy for things. I just look at what they say, like where they grow it or where they get stuff from. It's the same thing with sage. I want to know that the white sage is not being taken from public land. I want them growing it and cropping it every year and stuff. So sourcing it from Amazon is not bad. Don't feel bad about that. We live in a time where we can get anything. Like, it's amazing. So use that to your advantage. You don't need a lot of it. Don't order a pound of wormwood. You don't need it. Order an ounce or two, and it burns slowly, and you can use it over a year. So order in small quantities. Don't get too carried away. when I was first starting out, I bought way too much stuff way too fast because of the excitement, you know. And then I had to throw rituals for everybody because I needed to get rid of stuff. It was an exciting time, but it was exhausting. So don't overload yourself. My wormwood is now almost 2 years old, still smells amazing. I just keep it in an airtight container. That's the best way to do it. Somehow little bugs get into your stuff if you leave it out in your house without it being sealed.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
All right. So you've given us the how to. When do we do this? Like, do we wait until Samhain? So can you tell us when's the best time to do it? You mentioned this season, but is there an optimal day, time?
The optimal day is when you feel really good about it. Honestly, go with your feelings. Go when it's a day where you can relax. You're not stressing. You're not rushing it. If you rush your rituals or spells, it never feels fulfilling. It's always like, oh, okay, well, I did it, but how good do I feel after I've done it? Because just wanting to get it done really bad. I've missed many a moon to do things because it just wasn't a good day for it. And I'm like, well, damn, now I got to wait a whole month for that moon cycle again. But you know what? If it was meant to happen, my day would have cleared up and all those things wouldn't have impeded me trying to get to it. So for this stuff, assess yourself and know that it's a good day. The Samhain season is from now until 2 weeks into November, maybe 3 weeks at the latest. And then we start getting towards Yule. That's going to be rebirth or the midpoint of rebirth. So once you get really into December, it's kind of late in the season. But you can always do a connecting with ancestors, all of this, anytime that you want to. What makes this a really good time is that when you're inexperienced, things flow better right now because there's less block. That sounds weird. There's not block. There's less stuff in between the material world and the immaterial world. That's the way that we all describe it. They say membrane, but I think that's super weird. I don't think of it as a membrane. I don't know. I think of it as we're human and we forget that we were spirit. So we have that block. I think that during this time, we start to feel less and less earthly and more like spirited, and all the things that we get involved in now is like dress up as anybody else, and your mind's all open to this creative, you could be anything you want to be. And so there's not that regimented routine of you're born this person, you do these things, that's your life, that's it.
I think we also have more darkness. So for me, the darkness is kind of like privacy almost. So it gets dark at 5. Right now, sun's setting at 7:30 here for us in Florida. I'm sorry, I should have brought that up. Yes, we're losing daylight fast. So for me, the darkness brings on this kind of like, okay, now's the time. I feel like I need to do this type of a ritual at night. But you're saying it doesn't.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
The
lighting the candles in the middle of the day just seems like I'm trying to smell up the house.
You have dark curtains. I mean, it just has to feel right for you. So yeah, I think that when I do candles, I definitely like it to be darker so that I can see their light. Their light creates an ambience that you just really can't get with anything else. Just like sitting under the moon. If you go outside and you wait 10 minutes, your eyes adjust fully to the light of the sky if you have no other lights around you. And that's when you can see with just our plain eye, the total brilliance of the moon and the stars that you can see with the human eye. It takes us 10 minutes to adjust to the darkness. So in doing that, yes, I love the darkness for those reasons. For moon cycles, there's no necessarily appropriate moon cycle to do it in. And like I said, you could really do this any time of the year that you wanted to. It's just optimal now because all of us are doing it now. Like all the spirits are trying to come through, where it's the energy surge of the veil thinning and the earth is going to sleep. We'll say that the earth is shutting down with all the crops and stuff. Not in Florida. This is when I grow stuff, but for the rest of the world, everything starts to slow. Well, the northern hemisphere, everything starts to slow down and get cold, and so there's that feeling of there's way more thought in the air than there is in the summer. In the summer, we're like active and our bodies are moving, and that's the energy that's out there. In the wintertime, we're cozy, we're calm, we're secluded, and you think a lot more. So as you're putting those waves out into the universe, like that's the feeling. That's where that yellow, the air symbol comes in communication through the mental link. Did I explain that well?
I thought
I feel
so.
like I kind
You
of went
guys-
off on a tangent for a second.
I think she explained it well.
It's,
If anybody has
Yeah.
questions though,
yeah.
you can raise your hand or we can unmute. Whatever, so.
Or I can let all you lovely people get back to your evening. And next week we have, what do we have? I don't know what we have. Oh, I think it's just celebrating Samhain next week.
Okay.
Yeah, celebrating Samhain next week. So if you're coming to that meetup, just know that we wear headdresses and we always have a drink, but we have drinks and we just chat about Samhain, and it's a very open conversation, less structured, more about having fun.
I think La Portia has a question for us. So
Yes.
I'm gonna unmute La Portia. Has to unmute. I'm
Is that
trying to
what you
unmute you, I guess.
Can't you click on her and do it? Oh no, you just
Asked
asked.
to
Okay.
unmute. Okay.
Yeah, La Portia, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and come online, or you can type it into the chat if you don't want to come online. I try to leave that as an option. Oh, we could stop recording also. I've been trying to stop recording once we get into people wanting to add in, or if they don't want to be on camera.
Yeah, that's a good
So
idea.
the stop recording is there. Yay, right there, square. Square.
Stop, honey. There's all kinds of
The square.